Yo, Shortbox Nation, this is Botter, and I'm here to tell you right now that con season starts early this year with the return of Northeast Florida's premier anime, comic book, and sci-fi event, Collective Con. That's right, Northeast Florida's largest pop culture convention returns for its 10th year on March 8th through the 10th at the Prime Osborne Center in Jacksonville, Florida. 10 years of Collective Con, they're pulling all the stops out to make sure this is a can't-miss event. And the guest list they got going, don't even get me started on the guest list. I mean, they've got A-list celebrity guests and voice actors from some of your favorite movies, anime, and video games like Elijah Wood and Sean Ashton, Ray Park, Trisha Helfer, Ross Marquand, Max Middleman, and Bo-Katan herself will be there, Katie Sackhoff. Tell me what other convention is giving you the opportunity to meet Frodo and Sam from Lord of the Rings, Darth Maul, and One Punch Man all under the same roof. Only at Collective Con. And if you're looking to get some of your favorite comics signed, or if you want to get an original sketch from some of the best comic artists in the world, well, you're in luck, because there'll be plenty of comic and creator guests there, like DC comic artist extraordinaire Clay Mann, Harvey Award-nominated illustrator John Taylor Christopher, Marvel and DC cover artist Chris Stevens, and acclaimed Star Wars author Timothy Zahn. They'll all be at Collective Con this year. And if you're looking to bring the family, or if you want to make a weekend out of it, you're in luck, because there'll be so much going on at Collective Con that weekend in the form of vendors, fan panels, video game tournaments, cosplay contests, after parties, and a bunch of fan events. You can purchase single and 3-day weekend passes now using the link in this episode's show notes, or by going to collectivecon.com to book your tickets and hotel. Buy your tickets now, and I'll see you at Collective Con, March 8th through the 10th. Now let's start the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Shortbox Podcast.
The Shortbox Podcast is recorded live from Jacksonville, Florida.
How did you feel after you ate that?
I felt...
Wait, was it a pizza burger?
Okay.
You didn't see it on his Instagram?
This is how depressed I am. So basically, I took two, those little personal Red Baron pizzas?
Yeah.
So I took two of those, and then I flipped them over and made them into like hamburger buns and made like a hamburber out of it.
And put hamburger patties in it.
What is sad about that?
Well,
Sign me up.
it's like... After you eat it, you feel pretty sad, pretty ashamed. I mean, it's a few seconds of like, oh, this is awesome, and then you're like, oh.
Yeah.
It did look good. I'm not going to lie, it looked good.
But yeah, I felt like really ashamed, and embarrassed of myself, and and I did put it out to the world to see. So I can't really
the unseen part of that post.
Yeah,
it's always the unseen.
See, it doesn't represent. Instagram is not real life. Is what the message of today is. You don't see the shame afterwards.
Oh my God.
That's a great way to welcome back the listeners. I got a special little intro for you guys.
Oh boy.
Tweet, Shortbox Nation. It's your
What
boy,
is that?
Baby Bird.
Getting away with all kinds
Oh
of
my
stuff while
God.
Cesar's gone.
Well, I mean, he's the one that gave me the nickname last episode.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yo, Shortbox Nation, it's your boy, Baby Bird, welcoming you back to another episode of the Shortbox
Were you
Podcast.
really embracing this nickname?
Any reason to load up, this my bump machine with more annoying bumps, I'll take it. But look, if you heard last week's episode, the nickname makes a lot more sense. But if you're new to the show and joining us for the first time, welcome to your new favorite comic book podcast. You're now tuned into the Shortbox, episode 335 at that. My name is Botter, and today my crew and I will be putting a spotlight on the Marvel comic character Shang-Chi, or Shang-Chi, as some of you might be calling him. Yeah. That was me up until now, when Ed gave me the lesson.
Like, you have permission. Half of me approves.
Yes.
The other half is not happy
and I'm
with
going to run
you.
with it. So we're putting a spotlight on one of the oldest and most prominent Asian heroes in Western superhero comics, first appearing in Special Marvel Edition number 15 during the height of the martial arts craze of the 70s. He premiered in December 1973. He was created and introduced to the world through writer Steve Englehart and James Starlin, who are no lightweight comic book creators at that. And no surprise to anyone here, but Shang-Chi will also be making his live-action film debut later this week in theaters across the world in Shang-Chi and the Legends of the Ten Ring, which will star Chinese-Canadian actor Simu Liu as the title character. So we'll be spending a lot of time this episode talking about the character's comic origins and how that might impact the new movie. And helping me make this episode possible are the best co-hosts a podcast could ask for. Here with me in the Shortbox studio today is the half-man, half-art-making robot himself. The Edbot 5000, a.k.a. Mr. Edmund Danzar, is in the building.
Yo.
And the queen of comic book audio reviews has graced us low-lifes with her presence today. Miss Ashley Laney Hoy is
Your
with us.
Majesty.
Hello.
And the only person missing this week is everyone's favorite curmudgeon, Cesar Cordero. But he won't be gone for too long. And not only that, we're also used to, carrying the workload without him. So expect a lot of shit talking in Cesar's absence per tradition. So Ashley, this is your chance to get back at Cesar and all those nasty things he said when you missed out.
Okay.
Before we get this show really going, I want to thank our Patreon subscribers, the best kind of supporters a podcast could ask for. They helped us pick the comic for this week's Spotlight, which happens to be the 5-issue limited Shang-Chi comic series from 2020, written by multi-Eisner winner Jean Luen Yang, and incredible artwork by Dyke Ruan. Hopefully I'm saying that one right.
DK.
Oh, DK. Okay, DK. Is it DK Ruan?
Yeah,
Okay,
I had to look
perfect.
it up too.
Thank you, Ed. The series is collected in a nice and easy-to-read trade called Shang-Chi Volume 1, Brothers and Sisters, which you can probably find pretty easily at your local comic shop by you or on the Marvel Unlimited app if you want to read it digitally. So if you're interested in being counted among the Shortbox Elite and having a direct say in our future episodes and topics, consider joining our Patreon community. Enjoy perks like episode voting and bonus content, as well as knowing your money is helping us make the show better. Check out the Patreon link in the show notes for more information. With that being said, Ashley, Ed, what's your I guess familiarity with Shang-Chi? I mean, do you remember your first conscious exposure? Is he a new character for you?
I'll go first because mine will be really short.
You're like,
none.
Y-E-S.
Almost no I mean, I remember seeing covers and being like, oh, this looks cool. Never read a Shang-Chi comic before this.
Okay.
I don't know. Like, I like Kung Fu movies. I just never read it.
There probably wasn't, when you were growing up, there wasn't probably a lot of stuff out there. I mean, new stuff anyway.
Yeah.
Shang-Chi,
And I mean, even
Sure.
like at the comic shop, there was never like a big fuss about like any of it to like make me want to read it. And there's just so much stuff out there. But I did like it. I just want to tell you that, Ed. It was good.
A lot of these compliments will be aimed at Ed in such a weird way.
Silently judging all of you.
But to your point, I think, and I say this respectfully, I think prior to this movie coming out, Shang-Chi was kind of like the epitome of a B-list kind of C-list
100%.
character within Marvel. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, that are outside of his control, not because of quality's sake, but because of the legal aspects of the character and what he's kind of like derived from.
Yeah.
I didn't know that there was like a 34-year gap where he didn't have a solo title. Which was pretty interesting. So.
Yeah, and that's the Fu Manchu, and the origins are dubious at best. So
Well
that's part of it. Like I said, because he is tied in with the Sax Rohmer Fu Manchu novels. So like I said, once they lost the rights to it in I think 82 or 83, and then his original series stopped. What do we do with this character? So he's been kind of like. He'll show up here and there. He was in like some groups like Agents of Atlas. He was in Avengers World
Heroes for
as
Hire.
a member, Heroes for Hire. So he's kind of made sporadic appearances, but he didn't really have a lot of solo work. Because like I said, that character was kind of without that license. They kind of put him in the back burner.
I'm real surprised that it took Marvel, I guess, this long up until 2020 with this series that we'll be talking about today to retcon and rework his origin. Like you would think, like something what Jean Luen Yang did in this series would have been done prior to.
Well, but you gotta. They had their martial arts. They had the Iron Fist.
True.
So Iron Fist kind of filled that space. Even though the Shang-Chi was, created before Iron Fist, but you had that kind of martial arts character filling that. I guess void, for lack of better words, filling that space. So I didn't see like the need to. And then the way they wrote off Shang-Chi in the series, where he just basically, okay, I'm going to be I think in the original series, because I think I had that last issue, was basically just became like, a fisherman or just kind of lived his life of solitude.
Hermit life.
Yeah, hermit life, because his father, he killed his father supposedly, and is like, I have no reason to keep fighting. And he's been a pacifist character, through his whole run. So it wasn't like he was going out looking to fight people. He just fought because he had to. He was kind of forced to.
Yeah, he despite him being like, having all these great adjectives, in the name of his comic series, Deadly Hands, Savage Fist of, Shang-Chi, Master Martial Arts and all that. He's not your typical gung-ho American superhero, like he does kind of embody like, that Tao kind of mentality of like, meditation, having your emotions under control, like being very zen. And we've been kind of, making these light jokes and whatnot, but I think it's safe to say out of all of us, you are our, prominent and lead Shang-Chi correspondent.
Well, it's just like I said, like when, those were the comics that I grew up with. I got the Heroes for Hire. I got the Shang-Chi. I got the C-list people because those were in the discount bins, I got all those B and C-list characters that I've, growing up. But yeah, like I said, and for me growing up, and like I said, my experience is different because I am, half Asian, half white, and I look white for the most part until I shave my head and take my glasses off. Yang, he's got like a different perspective, because he didn't like the character growing up because I'm sure you've encountered this where as a kid, you kind of go in and it's like, this is cool. Like I have this Asian part of me. I really celebrate this heritage until the kids make fun of you.
Oh, 100%. When they end up using that name as a insult instead of like, oh, you're your character. And
then for me, it pretty much like, and it was for him too. It's like, he didn't embrace that heritage. So it's like, I don't want to be the Chinese kid reading the Chinese guy, just get beat up even more, so, and that kind of, but I kind of gravitate towards Shang-Chi because he was, portrayed as like half white, half Asian, as, Fu Manchu's kid. So that's probably why he appealed more to me than, maybe a lot of Asian kids that didn't want to kind of fall into like a stereotype. They looked at him as a perpetuating stereotype, and especially with Fu Manchu being in it, even more so. But as a kid, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I thought, I didn't really look at him like that. So my perspective's a little different because it's like, this is a cool hero. I liked seeing that representation, so to speak, even if it is kind of, pulpy, schlocky stuff,
I guess I didn't know why his ties to the Fu Manchu character could be considered problematic prior to doing the research for this episode, and I definitely want to spend some time talking about that. But I wanted to take a quick step back as far as like his origin and his powers. I mean, how would you describe them to someone who is going into this, whether this movie or this comic book, blind? I mean, who is Shang-Chi?
I would say I would kind of compare him as far as fighting to like a Batman, where he's just trained since birth or since a child to be like a living weapon, an assassin, learning different disciplines of martial arts. Like I said, Englehart and Starlin, Kung Fu was really big at the time, the show with David Carradine. So
this was in the 70s too.
Yeah, this is 1973. Let's take us back before any of us was born. Basically, Kung Fu inspired, and I think, because I read Englehart's introduction, because I have the omnibus for the first omnibus for Shang-Chi. So basically, they got the idea from, Kung Fu. It's like, oh, let's do something like this, the martial arts, something to do with martial arts, something different from, the superhero stuff. And they pitched it, and Roy Thomas, they couldn't get the rights to do the adaptation, because I think that was the original plan, was to do the comic book adaptation of Kung Fu. And then, they pitched it to Roy Thomas, and Roy Thomas actually suggested, or I think kind of forced the Fu Manchu character to be in it, because they had the rights and they couldn't get Kung Fu, but we have these Sax Romer rights, so let's use some of those characters while we can. And I don't think Englehart or Starlin, and Starlin's even said, like, a few years ago, he's like, don't put Fu Manchu in this movie. Wow. He's like, this is, because he said, when I started, I had no idea of the character, but that character, and this is, a generational thing, but previous generations, that was a big, for the wrong reasons, an iconic character, an iconic villain. And then Englehart was like, he said some weird stuff. He's like, I don't, because his thing was dodging. It's like, I didn't really want him in there, but I had to because editorial. But I don't see him as Chinese. I see him as just an evil incarnate. It's like I don't think of Doctor Doom as being Latvian. It's like, first of all, that place doesn't exist. That's not a great comparison, Steve. So he's like, I don't consider him, his ethnicity. When I think of like villains like Doctor Doom, but the way that those novels were written, that was 100% his ethnicity was his character.
Yeah, so, I read somewhere where Romer's first like description of Fu Manchu in his books was like, leaned very heavy on describing his physical traits and very negative
and
connotations.
And that very like kind of stereotypical Qing dynasty outfit. The mustache was like, I'm not sure if it was developed. I think that was developed more when it became like he started showing up in movies and stuff.
Yeah, and actually became the name of the hairstyle.
Which is crazy. Yeah. What a crazy influence this character that, this bizarrely racist character has had over the years.
And a relic of like from old political cartoons at that.
Yeah,
right?
And
it's like an hyperized like caricature of a nation.
So Sax Rohmer, he's in London, and this is we can go like historically, this gets crazy. You can go out in the weeds, but basically that character was created pre-World War I, maybe a dozen years after the Boxer Rebellion. And then he was a reporter, and he was seeing a lot of the in the Chinatown, the Limehouse district. So he was seeing a lot of like reporting on a lot of criminal activity there. So people's perceptions, he was basically going on the stereotypes of their time. That's like if, say 20, 30 years ago, let's make some like a Middle Eastern villain. I don't know. What do we do? Let's a turban, maybe a curved sword.
Yeah,
like,
just going for low hanging fruit.
Yeah, basically, exactly. He was taking the low hanging fruit and creating this villain, which ironically, he wanted to he basically wrote 3 novels and then wanted to be done with it. But it was so popular, and he just kept writing novel after novel of this character. It's just crazy. But like, as far as, the Shang-Chi becoming introduced, 73, Warner Brothers is starting to bring, blaxploitation movies are coming into play. Warner Brothers are bringing, kung fu movies in like small theaters, and they're making money, like Five Fingers of Death. Fists of Fury came out the year before, but I think the more influential thing for Shang-Chi is got to be Enter the Dragon, because that comes out in 1973.
Wasn't Steve Englehart and Jim Starlin, the creators, weren't they specifically going for Shang-Chi to look exactly like Bruce Lee? Like Bruce Lee was their archetype?
I think he was the archetype, even more so when like Gulacy and Mensch took over. But yeah, because that creates that kind of spy element, as well as the martial arts element. So I think Kung Fu and then Enter the Dragon, those are the 2 big influences of the day.
Yo, this is Botter. Sorry for interrupting this episode, but I'll keep it brief. I wanted to let you know about a massive sale we have going on over at the Shortbox store on all of our merchandise and apparel. That's theshortboxstore.bigcartel.com. You can now save 20% off your entire order using the discount code YOO, Y-O-O. So if you've been waiting for the right time to finally buy that gauntlet snapback, or if you ever wanted to buy any of the shirts you see me wear on the podcast, well, now's your chance to get them for a steal. We still have a few sizes left of everything, but they won't last long, and once they're gone, they are gone. And then I mentioned that all of our apparel is screen printed on high quality material. None of that heat transfer or direct to garment stuff. Our shirts are some of the most comfortable ones you'll ever wear, and the hats look even better in person. So wear your support for the Shortbox Nation proudly, knowing that you're going to look damn good doing it. Get to theshortboxstore.bigcartel.com as soon as you can, and don't forget to use that discount code YOO, Y-O-O, to save 20% off your entire order. All of this information can be found in this episode's show notes if you want to get there faster. Thanks for not pressing fast forward. Now back to the show. Have you? When's the last time you read his first appearance in Marvel special edition number 15?
Oh, just the other day, because I got the omnibus. So
that's right. I read it for the first time today, and I was blown away by how good it was.
Outside of some of the dialogue, it
it doesn't age well.
No.
You know, especially when you've got characters like the British intelligence agent in the first issue calling Shang-Chi like the Yellow Devil, the Yellow Fiend.
Yeah.
You know, like very low-hanging fruit, like derogatory slurs, you know?
But that's those characters, like the guy that he kills and then the old guy in the wheelchair, those are Romer characters.
Yep.
So those are the guys who've been fighting Fu Manchu for all these years and are basically just old now. But, you know, Fu Manchu's, you know, has that Ra's al Ghul immortality.
Yeah. But talk about I was, like I said, really impressed by that first issue introducing such a new character. I thought his origin story is great. You know, the son of this megalomaniac, I guess would be a good phrase for him. But the son of this megalomaniac who, you know, has been trained his whole life to, I mean, he's kind of like, you know, Damian Wayne, you know.
Yeah, he's like
origin.
in a cult. He's like
Exactly.
in the shelter, just basically training the whole time. And this is his first excursion to the outside.
Yeah. So, and his first mission is what? To kill an enemy
guy.
of his father. He actually ends up killing the old guy in his sleep. Learns from another agent who was in the house,
Dennis,
MI13 agent, Dennis, that his father is actually the evil one. And it's kind of like a rude awakening for him.
And it's funny. It's like he's convinced right away. It's like, oh, what? No way.
Nah, my
And
dad?
He's like,
My dad?
He is, yeah.
The evil, you know, laboratory and evil henchmen are all for show. Nah, he's a good dude.
The crazy ape guard. It's like,
He was also like a real violent first issue
it's
too.
All fighting, and imagine reading that as like a kid. It's like
I'd be like, whoa.
Yeah, you don't notice that because that's not really in your. At least for me, it's not in your. You know, you don't think like that yet.
Mm-hmm.
You're just looking at, oh, this is awesome.
No, you're taking it.
He's punching this ape in the face. It's
You're
great.
taking it as it's intended to be, which is, you know, telling you this fun kind of superhero story. You're not digging deeper into the meanings or political ties and racial undertones.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was really impressed by that first issue. I'd recommend. I would definitely recommend anyone to check out that his first appearance. The aspect that shines through for me, aside from the really good fight scenes and choreography, and the art is pretty stellar, is the characterization too. Even though, despite learning that, you know, his whole life has kind of been a lie, his father is like, you know, this evil genius. He kind of sympathizes with him in a very unique way, and you know, kind of channeling that philosophy that has become a part of the character. Where he's looking, I think there's a panel where he's like, you know, I can understand why my father had me or is evil or something to that effect. You know, he's like the human body yearns to reproduce, you know, but everything else is, you know. I'm doing a terrible job of explaining it, but he drops some like very Zen knowledge and you know, yin and yang kind of mentality, and I thought that was pretty interesting.
And it's cool because it's a cool first issue because it really sets the table for the story.
Yes,
it's like they have the confrontation. It's like this is the next time we meet, we'll be, you know, they have the come to Jesus moment together at the end, and like I said, sets the table for the characters. In that regard, I think it does such a great job of kind of introducing a new character and it's something different, you know, something unique.
Exactly. You know what? Yeah, you nailed it. It's such a unique origin story when you compare it to some of the other heroes being introduced at that time in the 70s, which I kind of consider Marvel's like second kind of, maybe even third golden age at that time, where they were, you know, putting out a hand. I mean, this is around the same time that you were introduced to like Luke Cage. Yeah. I think maybe Iron Fist.
Iron Fist comes out later. Actually, Roy Thomas and Gil Kane create Iron Fist because like once that Kung Fu, like it was like a hot couple of years when that like the martial arts movies became, you know, such a big deal, you know, so popular. And like I said, Enter the Dragon is still like probably the highest money making martial arts movie of all time. And combining that with the death of Bruce Lee, like, you know, a month before its release here, it's like it's become like a legendary, you know, movie.
And to your point, that first issue kind of sets the theme for the remainder of, that Master of what is it, Master of Deadly Hands or Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, right?
Yeah. Well, the Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, like I said, so the first comic, you know, basically Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu.
There you go.
It becomes so popular that they want to do the magazine, which is the Deadly Hands of Kung Fu.
There we go. I will say that is one thing about the character that has always confused me is the different series.
Yeah.
The titles. Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, Master of Kung Fu, Savage Fist of Kung Fu. I mean, like all the different magazines.
And that was basically because he became such a hot character and that's why those guys left That's why, Starlin left. He's like, I'm not drawing all this because let me tell you what they wanted them to do. So basically, you have the monthly comic, and then a quarterly giant size comic, which is 40 plus pages, black and white comic, which with 20 pages of a Shang-Chi story. Then we're going to do the British editions, and since we don't have a backlog of Shang-Chi stuff, we got to do 8 pages of British stuff. All in a month.
Wow.
And like Englehart and Starlin were like, this. Starlin left, and I think when he left, Englehart was like, I don't want to, this is too much. This is, I don't want to, I want to do other things. They were like, we told our little story, but we didn't want to get this deep involved. And, that's why, Doug Mensch came in because he's an editor at the time, and he's looking for an opportunity to do this, and he loves the character. And, and Gulacy's the same thing. They were both like kind of hungry and wanting to prove themselves. So they took up a lot of this, a lot of these, art chores. He didn't draw everything because that's impossible to draw 80 pages a month. Jesus.
Yeah. And, I'm real familiar with the character of Shang-Chi from, of course, my dad being such a big martial arts and especially like Kung Fu enthusiast. He had a lot of those early black and white Deadly Hands of Kung Fu magazines.
Oh, cool.
Which blew me away seeing Bruce Lee literally on the cover of a few of those a few of those covers. And I think that's where sometimes the confusion would come in, is that not only do you have a character based in homage to Bruce Lee at a certain point, of course, but Bruce Lee also starred on the cover. So sometimes you were like, wait, is that Shang-Chi or is that literally a Bruce Lee story? Like the lines were a little blurry sometimes.
Yeah, and that's an unfortunate thing, too, because you had a lot of the, Game of Death where they had to film portions after he died because he didn't get to finish that. And then you had the Bruce-sploitation movies where people would, there'd be Bruce Lee, but with an L-I. They would change the name and they would basically capitalize on his fame and kind of make these counterfeit, bootleg movies, and that was like a big thing after that too. So I don't really consider that part of the Bruce-sploitation because they're not using his image in
Got it.
Just to try to make money off of it. Well, I guess they are, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah. It's not exploitative. It's like, oh, this is we know what we're basing this off of.
Yeah. And Ashley, I feel like this is probably more Shang-Chi information that you'll probably ever need.
I'm immersed right now.
But let's.
She's looking at the omnibus. She's looking at all of it.
Yo, look, I have those omnibuys, I guess would be plural. Were lifesavers when it came to trying to get my dad a gift for the last 2-3 years. I think I've purchased every single omnibus for Shang-Chi.
Nice. There's like
for my
6
dad.
of them.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
A lot. Yeah, so I don't know
like
where he's storing them.
$100 a pop.
I think he's literally holding the house up with these omnibuses. Like,
they're awesome, and I like them, but they are so pricey. They charge. They're like what, $120 like list.
Yeah. So, you got. Sometimes you'll be lucky, and you'll maybe find a third-party seller on Amazon, or maybe like on in-stock trades.
Still like $80. They'll have $70. But it's their price. I eventually want to get all of them, and they have the Deadly Hands omnibuses too now. Oh man, Jesus, that's a lot. That's a lot of money.
Let's switch gears and talk about this comic book series that we all ended up reading together. It's the 2020 Shang-Chi self-titled series. That, like I said, came out in 2020. It's written by multi-Eisner winning writer Jean Luen Yang and art by, what was his first name again? DK Ruan.
And then Philip Tan does the flashbacks.
Yeah, and Philip Tan, which is always nice to see, like a Tan, whether it be Billy Tan or Philip Tan. But like I said, 5-issue limited series came out in 2020. This was really launched. It not only marked Jean Yang's Marvel debut. Up to this point, he had already worked for DC Comics. I think already won Superman. Superman Smashes the Klan. Already won a few awards for his other books, like American Born Chinese. I think that's the name of his other book. Mm-hmm. And why I say all that to say, at this point, he's already a pretty big name in the world of YA novels as well as comics. So Marvel brings in Jean to relaunch the Shang-Chi series, which is great timing because the movie comes out, in less than a year. But the interesting thing about this comic series is that Jean takes it upon himself to retcon and rewrite the origin of Shang-Chi and kind of separate him completely from the Fu Manchu origin. But I say all the way, but not really. He kind of
still
reworks.
keeps like the MI6 stuff. The Liko, she was an original character, so he does keep some of that spy elements of it, but he definitely takes it a whole new, and he really goes into like the mystical, stuff, which is kind of neat.
Yeah. So I mean, the series as a whole kind of explores the relationship between Shang-Chi and his father, who is now in this series renamed Xing Zhu, who is I guess a longtime sorcerer, who is
kind of like, I guess, a Ra's al Ghul, if you want to compare.
Exactly.
Him. And like, so I think Ed Brubaker did that, where he basically kind of retconned where there was a story where he named him that. So it's a Brubaker thing. Is like, okay, let's get away from this Fu Manchu name, and basically said, oh, that was one of his many aliases.
There we go. Yep. So Xing Zhu is his father, who used the alias as Fu Manchu, among other things as well. But essentially the same characters still. Megalomaniac. Well, maybe not so much. In this series, he's more of like he's been around since the Boxer Rebellion. He's been using like this life-extending elixir this whole time. And he started like a clan of different houses, and Shang-Chi represents the House of the Fist.
It's the hand, which I wonder if it's like the same hand as the Daredevil.
That's what I was thinking too. Yeah. That's what I was curious about that too. Ashley, what would you say about the comic book? Was it worth your time? I mean, what did you think?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I can always tell it's worth my time if I like read all the issues in one sitting. Like if I keep finishing and I want to read more, there's so much more family drama in there than I was expecting.
That was one of his main things he wanted to do, is make it like Vin Diesel, like family, about family.
Yeah, and there's like everyone's like a half brother, half sister.
Yeah, because I think with these 5 houses is I don't think they're all. I think Shang-Chi is like the biological child, but I know some of the other children maybe just
like his half brothers, half sisters,
or like some people, like if he like destroyed a village, they take a baby and raise, one of those things, like a Thanos, where it's like he conquers a planet. And, oh, this is a cool kid. Let me raise, kind of like how Thanos is like Gamora and or in Nebula or his children, but not really.
Family by conquer.
Yeah,
that's how Shang-Chi's got all these brothers and sisters.
So, and I really liked all the, is it Shang-Chi, the zombie stuff?
Yeah, that's real Chinese mythology. Like the vampires, which if anyone aren't familiar, you'd see the like a Darkstalkers.
Darkstalkers, yeah.
One of the characters is one of those hopping zombies, and like it's a lot of kung fu movies have them in there. It's a lot of like I said, it's going really cool seeing that Chinese mythology rather than the whole kind of like a nice twist on the zombie trope, using them as kind of like a zombie horde, to attack people. Yeah.
And it's cool because there's like all these really good fight scenes, and then they get to these Shang-Chi and they're like, oh, you got to stick an amulet on their forehead. Yep. So it like switches it up. It's like mystical and just like straight fighting.
That's straight from Chinese mythology too. That's how the priests control. They write, on these long pieces of paper, like these tickets, and stick it on their head. And that's basically their commands, what they do.
I can definitely tell, reading this, I could definitely tell Gene comes from that. Even had I not known about his, his previous works, I could definitely, you can almost tell that he comes from a, younger adult audience. Because some of the dialogue, to me, sometimes felt a little too on the nose and whatnot, or safe, I guess the other word I'm looking for. But it never distracted me, And I mean this, and I think as a series that is meant to serve as a good jumping on point, I think sometimes you lean into that to be so welcoming to a wider audience.
Exactly.
Yeah. What did you think about the artwork, Ashley, by DK?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, it was it did its job. It was nothing like super exciting, but it was like.
Did it feel like a manga to you? Because for me, there was a couple of pages or sequences where I got a lot of manga vibes, and I'm not sure if that's just because of the subject matter they were dealing with or because of the art style being intentional.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was that one scene where he like packaged up all those orders and then just like flung them all out, and that looks straight like it was from like an anime movie. But yeah, I think like certain characters kind of gave me that feel, but overall,
there's some expressions
really.
When they when like the last panel where they're like cheering with the big smiles and stuff. Yeah, it's the art I like. I agree with you. I think that's kind of why I really didn't get too into it when it came out, because I got the first 2 issues because that second issue had that Alex Ross cover.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nice.
yeah.
So I got the first 2 issues. It didn't really, it was, I liked it, but it wasn't really like, I gotta, see this to the end. Going back, I think I might have been, it's just more me, like because I have such a love of Shang-Chi, so anything different, I'm gonna like, I'm gonna like, I don't want to like this, but it's good. It's something that's needed to be done. Like, as much as I love the old stuff, I understand times change. We got to change things. We got to update things. And I think he did a good as a job as you can do. And the fact that he got, even the editor, it was pretty much an all Asian group of people working on this comic, cool. Which is really cool. And I've listened to interviews with him, and he seems like a really just affable guy. Like, even because the interviewer was basically showing him all the variant covers of one. This was before the first issue came in, and he's like he's like, man, Art Adams drew a cover.
Oh, that's badass.
Art Adams.
So he's a really big comic head.
He's a big comic book fan. That's why, when they asked him, like, was Shang-Chi a big part of your growing up? And that's like, it was a surprising perspective, but after reading his book, I get it. Okay. It's like where he's like, I don't want to be the Chinese kid reading the Shang-Chi book. It's like, oh man, I'm just asking for it. So he's like, I just want to fit in. I want to, I don't want to stand out. I want to fit in with the other kids. And like I said, he said he didn't really, and he read some of it, but it wasn't really his thing. But like I said, he knew what he had to change. And I think embracing that Chinese mythology, like I said, just kind of adding a pretty good modern touch. I like the character designs, and it's funny too because he's a cartoonist, but he's not like on the level of these guys.
Got it.
Because like I said, you can look in this. This is his art, but it's really simple. And the interviewer asked him, he's like, "Did you design these? Did you send them drawings?" Like, I'm not telling these guys how to draw. I'm not on their level. So he knows.
He respects the process.
He didn't Jeff Lemire this. He let the artist be the artist. Yeah. So I like his style. It's nice and clean, and it's a fun style, but it's definitely not that Marvel House superhero style.
And given the task at hand to bring this character from very questionable and I'm just going to stay with questionable origins and intentions. I got to give him props. Like this 5-issue limited run, I feel like you could give it to someone and get like the gist of the character in today's times. I think if you were to try to give someone the his first Hands of Shang-Chi, Master Kung Fu,
he made him more relatable, and less of a stereotype. He definitely didn't want to. And that was
I think he would almost turn someone off that granted, I think you would turn someone off that isn't aware of like. The martial arts craze or kung fu, or familiar with that. Oh yeah,
it could be off-putting. For sure.
It would be off-putting because it would almost feel like, wait, is this supposed to be a joke? Is this supposed to be like some sort of caricature?
It's like this guy's barefoot all the time.
You know what? Ed, I'm so glad you brought that up.
Because walking around gross-ass New York in bare feet.
Rereading the first issue, and understanding the context of like 70s kung fu craze. Yeah. And it's just like it's not the same sensibilities as of today, right?
And even like I said with Starlin, he didn't know that, but he read like a friend of his. He said gave him a Fu Manchu, like one of the novels, and he said this is gross.
Yeah,
it's like
well, that's good to know. That's good to know.
Yeah, but you got to understand, and I can't put the fault on them because they were kind of pushed in that corner by editorial, and that type of thinking, I don't think was really prevalent then. He's like, oh, this Chinese guy, what's the big deal? Exactly. It's like,
we can write him. Yeah, we can write him. We know about Chinese guys,
karate
right?
outfit all the time, the time. Put him in some jeans and let's keep him in that karate outfit.
Yeah, like I said, if and through the lens of today's sensibilities and whatnot, you look back at it, you're like, what the fuck are they doing? Some of the
that's
phrasing.
Probably why I didn't get picked on the vote.
But also, like, did they have to make him so predominantly yellow? And I say that respectfully, but like Shang-Chi in his first issue,
they toned it down
so
but
much. It's like, okay, I get it.
Fu Manchu is like highlighter yellow.
Oh, it's
he's like this.
It looks like he's got jaundice. And he's got jaundice and racism going on for him. It's like
there's another character. I don't know if you've seen him, the Shadow Stalker, the guy with the two maces as like ponytails.
No,
like the Mongolian looking guy, but he's like bright yellow too. It's pretty like. Yeah. Oof.
So I say all that to say, with the task at hand that Gene Yang and DK had, and Philip Tan too, on this particular series, I do got to commend them. I didn't end up researching Fu Manchu, and like I got down like a deep rabbit hole of like Fu Manchu, the Yellow Peril, and all that stuff. Like midway through this, so
And it was
did give me a
crazy
new sense of
that
appreciation.
Yellow Peril, that was like a type of fiction. That was like a genre almost. Like Romer made that a genre, like mystery. Oh, this is a Yellow Peril, fiction. It's like, that's crazy. And then basically,
And for
Romer,
real quick, for anyone unfamiliar with what like the Yellow Peril is, like what would you say that is?
oh, it's
Or how would you
basically,
explain it? How would you explain it?
I guess it would be like a colonialist, broad, sweeping racist views on Asian culture, trying to
They're
take over
mystic,
Western.
yeah.
They're mystic.
Not really
they're
sure what they do.
mysterious,
Yeah.
weird. And they want to destroy Western values.
Yes,
It's all that kind of nonsense. But like I said, I try to put things in perspective from and like I said, I'm not saying Sax Rohmer's a great dude, because it doesn't seem like he is with some of the interviews I've read, but that was just like the thought of the time. And that's, I think, why that character had such a long, almost like pop culture type status. Because like I said, his novels were Fu Manchu novels. They weren't Sir Dennis Nayland, or James Bond or Sherlock Holmes. He was the title character as the villain, which is odd, and like and I think is weird and like stereotypical and kind of offensive as this can be. He did set a template for a type of villain, which I thought was interesting, because he was like this, he mixes science and magic. Who does that? Dr. Doom. He's like, that's a template for a Dr. Doom type character. There's like a nobility, like a regalness, but then he's like a savage torturer and killer. So there's these like opposing dynamics rather than a one note type of villain, which he wasn't a one note villain, which probably why it intrigued people, because it really did set a template for a lot of, modern day villains that we see. It's like, with that elixir that he made that's made him immortal, that's like, man, that's like Ra's al Ghul is kind of modeled after this guy, and, Ming the Merciless and Flash Gordon, it's like, I'd say Dr. Doom, and he's one of those villains that became like, I don't want to say cool is the word, but popular, like kind of like a Darth Vader became like cool. He's like the main villain, like, but everyone like, man, that guy looks awesome. He's cool, and like he can even go to like, even like the 90s Mandarin, he's, modeled after, that, and like Lo Pan, Big Trouble Little China, it's, you can see that influence in setting that templates for kind of like a new type of like fictional villain, which is interesting. But unfortunately, he's in that, like, dressing of horrible racism. And it's weird. It's like, so one more thing, it's like, and if he did something like where the protagonist was an Asian guy fighting this Asian, it might be we might look at it different. And if he only did those 3 novels and he didn't do, let's see, how many novels he did? Like 14 novels.
Wow.
Just him doing it. But there's been other people who've done it. But from like 1912 to 1959, this character has been written in novels.
Yeah.
And it's like crazy. It's like, it's crazy that how popular that stereotype became. But there's some interesting, if you look past that and dig a little deeper, there's some interesting things that basically set the template for a lot of our favorite villains, I guess, our favorite villains today. So it's an interesting to look into.
Fun fact, I think Ashley's boy, Nicolas Cage, saw some of the good or some of the interesting components of the Fu Manchu character, because didn't he kind of channel a Fu Manchu kind of esque character in Grindhouse or something like that?
What was it?
I know what you're talking about, but I can't pinpoint it. Was it Grindhouse?
I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was Grindhouse. Let me see.
Nicolas Cage, he likes all the cool stuff. He's just into
cool,
really like that.
Yeah, it wasn't Grindhouse. It was 2007 Grindhouse, and if you just type in Nick Cage Grindhouse,
I've never seen it.
You'll be greeted by a laughing
wow.
Nick Cage with the Fu Manchu going on.
1,000%.
He just has good taste in everything.
I don't know if that's good taste.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know about.
He's got Action Comics #1.
Well, he had to
He's
sell
got like,
You know what? He's eccentric, and this doesn't surprise me when you look at everything he's kind of done.
But I would say, like, when I watched Big Trouble in Little China, which is a favorite movie of mine, Lo Pan is Fu Manchu, but even though there's they do say like a lot of things with Chinese, they present him more as like a demon or like a cursed, they don't say he represents all Asian, people, they don't put that label on him. So I think it works in that context. And I think a character like that can work, because I don't want to go down where we're censoring, fictional characters. That gets kind of weird to me, but in this case, I 100% agree. And, changes need to be made. And I do like the shift of the Mandarin, in the movies kind of taking that role, which is.
And that's why I think I give this Shang-Chi comic series by Gene Yang so much credit, is because he not only successfully kind of retcon and reimagine the Shang-Chi origin, but he also does spend, I think it was like in issue 4 of the 5 issues, where he does kind of reimagines his father's origin too, Zheng Zhu, in this series at least, where he ends up taking that elixir because his goal was to, keep China free of invaders and these other political parties and countries coming in. So he kind of becomes, he starts out with a pure heart and noble intentions, but due to conquest and throughout the years,
and over time, he just power drives him crazy.
Yeah, which I think kind of adds a sensibility to him and some sympathy to the character.
And that twist where, I guess, spoiler, but in that twist where he says he killed his brother for power, but he ended up not killing his brother. It's like he lied to kind of keep this persona up, to kind of scare his kids.
I was unfamiliar that, Shang-Chi had this much family drama. So
so much.
So I'm like, wow, okay, someone else has got a pretty interesting family life.
And another thing with the interview with Yang, he's like, he said that he thinks, the popularity of Shang-Chi was like more of a it's interesting. He's like, it was like a novelty, it was something different, but nobody wanted to be him. But I want to create a character that kids want to be. Like, people want to be Spider-Man, Superman, they pretend to be them. He said the appeal of Shang-Chi at the time, because he was different, it was more treated as a novelty. So that's interesting perspective too. But he said he wanted to create, and I think he did a good job, like making him a lot more personable. He's not like just doing like fortune cookie things and like,
stoically in the background.
Yeah. He's like a fun guy. He just doesn't want to deal with this shit. I can totally relate to not dealing with family stuff.
And I'll be honest, it was probably in Jonathan Hickman's like Avengers World series, or because Hickman ended up using Shang-Chi in like not only Avenger, he made him an Avenger in his run, but I do like Hickman's interpretation of Shang-Chi. Like the way he wrote him was always like a good middle ground between being a badass, great fighter, along with like that stoic nature of his, of like words of wisdom, always being like calm and centered. I think he's a much more interesting character to me now, having done the research and kind of seen
got a lot
his
more
progression.
depth now.
Gave him a lot more depth. He survived the times too, is what I'll give him, because I always felt that Shang-Chi was always, it was like, all right, he's a kung fu fighter. In a world of, Spider-Man and Iron Man's, like, I think he kind of gets lost in the shuffle because he doesn't have a weird
flaming
shtick.
fist either. He
exactly.
doesn't do that either.
So I think he tends to get lost amongst the other great, Marvel characters. But I've definitely, I don't know, I'm looking at him in a different light, more so. And I think that background that Ed, you've done a great job of covering and mentioning, I don't know. There's something about seeing him kind of overcome those and not having been canceled, in this day and time.
Yeah, he's survived, all these years. And I think, what helped him too is he was just kind of brought back as like a bit player or part of a team, and that just kind of kept him.
Yeah, it didn't dilute. It didn't dilute his character.
And he's
been
brand. Pretty consistently done, So yeah,
there is a current Shang-Chi comic series that continues on from this, and I think it is being written by Gene Yang still. And I think that one is around the premise of like every issue, Shang-Chi is meeting different characters from the Marvel Universe. So in the first issue of the new series that's currently out right now, he teams up with Spider-Man. Next one will be with Captain America.
Yeah, they've been really putting the rocket on this guy, on this character for this movie to come out. So and they're handling it pretty well. I'm afraid of it being overexposure, to where it's like, like in the 90s where there was like 20 books with Wolverine. I don't want it to be that. I don't want it to dilute this character, because we're they're just now. This is a new character. It's basically a fresh new start
For sure.
And this is a new character they can build. They can get a new audience. It's like
I think outside of his initial appearance in the 70s and what you've mentioned about like him being so popular that he was getting all these titles, I don't think we've seen this much attention on the character since then, which is a good kind of transition for us to move and talk about the movie. Ashley, what are your thoughts on the movie as far as like what you've seen in the trailers? Like, are you excited for it? Like, what are you looking forward to?
Yeah, so I'm not one of those people that knows enough about Shang-Chi to like pick Easter eggs out of this trailer or whatever. I just watched the trailer and was like, this movie looks like fun.
Yeah.
Like, I can't wait to go see this movie.
That fight scene in the bus, like that few seconds, is better than any Iron Fist fight scene.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's that quick 3 seconds.
and Simu Liu, who's playing Shang-Chi in the movie, I understand that he's a stuntman himself, right? Like he like really trained up for this movie, and I think he's doing a lot.
It looks like. I mean, I've only seen a few things, but he looks like he can do the part. He can do the physical part of it for sure.
The writer and the director of the movie were very adamant about like, look, Fu Manchu for us was not even on the table. We didn't want to, make reference to him at all. We wanted to treat.
Because do you remember a couple of years ago when they announced it, and then like there was like all this backlash from China talking about like,
yeah, that's right, yeah. How dare you guys?
One frame hasn't even been filmed or a script.
Yeah, everyone kind of ran with the assumption.
And the last time I checked, I don't even know if they're gonna show that in China, which is crazy.
The antagonist in the movie is going to be Mandarin, the real Mandarin at that, not that
Ben Kingsley.
Not that Ben Kingsley Iron Man 3 fake out.
Really
which I think in hindsight, like definitely makes that a little more funnier.
But even he does say it because the way he was, I'm playing this character, I'm not the real guy, so it's. Yeah. But I don't think this was their original plan as much as they've planned all this stuff. I don't think they're gonna, when we do the Shang-Chi movie, we'll show these guys 12 years later. I'm excited to see it because of course I want to see this character on the big screen, but and I'll just use Black Widow as an example. It's like in Black Widow got a thumbs in the middle for me because all the interpersonal stuff was so good, but all the other like CGI, like the Mission Impossible stuff was just so over the top. It really took me out of it, and some of the weird choices they made in that movie. And I'm thinking this might be the same, where it's like some good interpersonal, scenes with, with the family and stuff like that, and with Mandarin, and then it devolves into like a CGI nightmare, and I'm hoping that's not going to happen. But like I said, I think one of the negative things I've read about it is like they try to put too much into this movie, like a lot of backstory and a lot of flashbacks and stuff. But this is a new character, and so it's not gonna
kind of run of the mill introduction, Marvel style.
And I'm hoping it's a better villain than kind of those like intermediate villains that we see.
That's like, what I really need to. I need Marvel to not only give us a really good villain, but hopefully keep him for much longer than.
Do you
one
remember?
movie.
Like I think I asked C before we saw Black Widow. It's like, do you think Taskmaster is going to even talk? Nope.
I'll be honest. That first trailer, I was not that impressed with that first trailer. Something about it, I could just feel. I could just tell, like, oh, this is going to be very formulaic, like very, prodigy son that has to go back to the past that he thought he forgot. Yeah. I felt like I was watching I could just tell where the movie was going.
Yeah.
Just from that one trailer. But the more trailers that ended up coming out, and with the more information, I think I'd seen something about like maybe Abomination making an appearance. In this movie, I think that might have been a rumor or something. But knowing that this movie, not only is it aiming to be another installment,
Wong's going to be in it.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, he's like, I've got to be in on this.
He's like, I better be.
I was in a pile of rubble. I want to do something.
That's funny. But but after like really kind of understanding the character and some of those origins, I feel like aside from this being another installment in the MCU, I think there is a message and a goal in mind outside of just delivering a good movie that I am rooting and hoping to see like really land.
Yeah. Me too.
I think a lot is kind of riding on this movie and all of that, but like especially considering like the times that we're in with like the recent hate against Asian Americans and things like that. Like this movie, like I'm rooting for it to be a smash in the box office, but also if it gives a kid a sense of like, a belonging, a representation that they need to feel good about themselves, like, I'm all for it, especially considering like the very strong Asian cast in this. I think it's like kind of unprecedented, right?
Oh yeah, this is and I think it's been compared to like hoping it has the same
kind of
impact Black Panther had. It's like that's a tall order, because that character has had a lot more positive history than Shang-Chi, so and
just a lot more history, period, in the comic books.
Yeah, and that's like a Kirby character. So it's had a lot more positive. It was never a joke. He was never really treated as a joke character or a stereotype.
Yeah,
he's like, oh, he's like royalty, and he's got all this technology, and it's like,
of the stereotypes attached to Black Panther, they are positive for the most part.
Yeah,
there is definitely stereotypes you could point to, but they flipped them, on his head to be something like, positive and kind of like things you hadn't seen in comic books at the time. How about we go ahead and close out with some recommendations? So where do people go next for more Shang-Chi? Ashley, would you recommend this 2020 run by Gene Yang?
Yeah, because it was a lot of information. It was only 5 issues. I feel like you got into like all the family drama, and you got like the backstory of the character and his whole family. I mean, it's the only Shang-Chi I've ever read, but I feel like I have a good grasp on the character overall.
One I just found out about, and I just got it actually last week, is Doug mentioned Paul Gulacy did a Max series in 2002.
I didn't know that he had his own Max series.
I didn't either.
Like, where was that?
I didn't either. Yeah. So I got this. It's a 6 issue series. So if you kind of want to see the old school stuff, but updated and more on the spy side, and, on the spy, less mystical, but more in the kind of the James Bond-ish type of thing, this is a really fun miniseries, and it's got Jimmy Palmiotti doing the inks. So it's really cool. I had no idea this existed. I just got it, ordered it a couple weeks ago. I just got it this last week and went through it. So if you want something that's kind of like more like the original Shang-Chi, but updated, for more modern tastes and sensibilities, yeah, definitely check out this Max series. It's really cool.
Good stuff. Have you ever read the 2017 Master of Kung Fu issue where CM Punk wrote one issue of Master of Kung Fu in 2017, and this was like after a 34-year like gap of Master of Kung Fu not being around?
I didn't read that one. I know that series. I didn't really care for it. Just I think the art was more of an art thing than a story thing. But yeah, I remember that series coming out. I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I saw the art, and it's like, oh yeah, I really dismissed it. I didn't.
CM Punk wasn't enough to keep you on board.
No, I mean, he's a good wrestler, but I don't need to read his comics.
I got you. Fair enough. I would go ahead and recommend for anyone that is curious more so on the historical side of Shang-Chi, there is a really good 3-part deep dive article from Inverse, the website Inverse. It's written by Eric Francisco, and it's titled "How Marvel's Shang-Chi Had to Destroy Its Own Racist Origins." Really good deep dive, a lot of good information. If you're a history buff that likes kind of diving into the history aspects of certain comic books, I highly recommend that. And then I'll go ahead and champion maybe one of the very few Shang-Chi comic book series I've read, but it came out in 2015 during like Marvel's Secret War crossover event by Hickman, where they were doing like all these Battle World limited series.
Battle World, yeah.
Yeah, there's
one.
He's
a drunk guy?
Yeah. There's one called Master of Kung Fu Battle World. It's written by W. Hayden Blackman and art by Dalibor Talajic. But the miniseries follows Shang-Chi. He goes from being a drunken outcast, like Ed said, in the city of Kunlun, to eventually becoming like a more mature master. Well, he ends up participating in a tournament against several deadly opponents, including like alternate versions, because all of this takes place in an alternate reality. I should have prefaced that. But he ends up joining a tournament where he ends up fighting alternate versions of like Taskmaster, Elektra, and Namor. And I want to say it was in that miniseries where I think the last person he ends up fighting is his father, the Mandarin, who's also named Xing Zhu at the time. And I think that might have been an influence on the movie that's coming out with, the Mandarin being his father in this series. Yeah, his whole, like, I had a whole paragraph trying to break down, like, his different familial ties, and I just said forget it, because it'll be a headache trying to follow along in audio wise. But he's definitely a very interesting character, and I recommend anyone that ends up enjoying the movie or is curious about the character to do some of the research and homework that we've presented. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump into our first recurring segment of the show, Fistful of Comics.
You can either have a mouthful of tea or a fistful of comics.
Fistful of Comics, it's the segment sponsored by Gotham City Limit, Jacksonville's premier shop for comics, toys, collectibles, and more. If you live in the area or ever find yourself passing through Jacksonville, stop by the shop on Southside Boulevard and tell them the Short Box sent you. Ashley, do you mind kicking us off this week and letting us know what new comic book are you spotlighting today?
So this week I'm going to spotlight Rorschach number 11. This series has been amazing. The very last issue comes out on September 14th. So you kind of have a little chance to catch up before the last issue comes out. I unlike Alan Moore, get very excited when Watchmen stuff comes out. So the all that before Watchmen stuff, like there was some good stuff. Most of it was all right. But like that HBO Watchmen series was fantastic. Mm-hmm. And then this Tom King Rorschach series has been amazing. It's about this guy that takes up like the mantle of Rorschach after he's gone, and there's no more Dr. Manhattan either. And it's just really cool. Like Tom King just has this way of like making you really invested in these characters.
After the Watchmen timeline is it? Is it like right after? Or is it like...
I think it's like 30 years later.
Oh, okay, so
yeah,
later.
Something like that. But he just gets you invested in these characters that you shouldn't like, but you just do. And this book is no different. But yeah, there's just like a little bit of time to catch up before the last issue comes out. But I am super, super excited for this last issue and kind of sad that it's going to be over.
Ashley, have you ever heard Alan Moore reading Rorschach's journal?
No.
I will show it to you on break, but I came across it on like either it was a Reddit thread or just something on YouTube I found, but it was like Alan Moore reading not only Rorschach's journal, but also like different like novels and stories.
Yeah, his voice is...
It's very like, it's very gravelly, and I don't know, makes me feel weird.
It does, because I've read his reviews on things, and it takes you a lot of time to figure out if he liked it or if he didn't like it.
You know, yes. Yeah. I was like, I can't tell if he's like being earnest in this reading, or he's like, just pissed off he's got to do it in the first place. You know what's even more scary is that Cesar's impersonation of Alan Moore, it's not that far off.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
I hate to give him credit for it because that's all we'll hear for the next, 20 minutes. But it's pretty spot on.
Yeah,
awesome.
So this book's really good. And if you want, like, Alan Moore's still curmudgeon-y because when you open this book, it says co-created by Dave Gibbons. That's all it says. Like, Alan Moore's like,
want any credit.
Don't put my name on any of this.
V for Vendetta.
And the Miracle Man.
Yeah.
He's just done. Yeah.
Thank you, Ashley, for the audio review. And since we're on the topic of best new comic books, we'll close out this segment with Gotham's Most Wanted list.
Batman, you are under arrest!
So here's a list of 3 brand new comic series, either starting or coming out next month that you should be on the lookout for. Let's cue up the music and start on this list. Number 1 on this list is Inferno. Number 1 of 4 will be coming out through Marvel Comics. It'll be out September 29th, and it'll serve as the culmination of Jonathan Hickman's now long-running X-Men series. So you'll have the mastermind himself, writer Jonathan Hickman, bringing his plans for the future of the X-Men to a head, and joined by an incredible lineup of artists, beginning with Valero Shetty on that first issue. Next up is The Boys number 1. It's getting a reprint in the form of a gold foil edition from Dynamite Comics. It'll be in stores same day as that Inferno number 1 on September 29th. But here's a little fun fact. I know, I saw that too, and I was like, come on. But I didn't know that Dynamite never actually had the honor of publishing issue 1 of The Boys. They actually started with issue 7.
Yeah, because DC, it got too hot for DC to handle, even though it was because I was reading it at the time, and even though it was one of their best-selling books, DC, it was getting a lot of like, oh god, this is too much. And then
I think I remember that.
yeah, and then they just dumped him. But they what the cool thing is though, they let Derek Robertson, who was a DC exclusive, still work on it.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's cool. But they just didn't want to like deal with all the controversy and all the just horrible stuff he was writing.
well, I guess they're treating like this opportunity as a pretty big deal.
That's
so,
cool.
So they're doing like this special limited edition reprint. So if you need the perfect jumping on point for the boys after binging it on Amazon Prime, here you go. And last but not least on this list is Wonder Woman's 80th anniversary 100-page super spectacular one shot. That is such a long title for a comic book. God. But it's coming out the following month on October 5th, so you'll have plenty of time to put this on your pull list. It's a one-of-a-kind special that will showcase Wonder Woman's past, present, and future in an attempt to celebrate the legacy that she's created. There'll be contributions from a boatload of writers and an amazing artist from old and new. I recommend seeing the full solicitation for this one for more details, because there's just so many writers and artists involved. And that's pretty much the list. Remember, this list is provided to us by our friends over at Gotham City Limit, so you know they wouldn't steer you wrong. If any of those pique your interest, get on it early and ask your local comic shop to put them on your pull before the final order cutoff date of September 2nd. With that being said, that marks the end of our first half, Showbox Nation. We're going to go on a quick music break. We'll be back with the fan favorite part of the show, Champion Season. And what I'll serve today, as far as music goes, is the original and full version of the OG Champion Season song. I'll explain why I went with this one when we come back. In the meantime, stay tuned. We'll be right back. I was in the mountains of Georgia last weekend on a little
nice
mini getaway. And of course, the first thing
deliverance music, cue deliverance music.
And I mean, per my travel tradition, whether I'm somewhere for like a week or only a couple days, I always want to look up like what's the local comic shop around here. And we were in Helen, Georgia, and the closest comic shop to where we were at least was one called. Well, actually, there was a few closer ones, like closer to Atlanta, but the one that I piqued my interest was called Mountain Man Comic Books, or Mountain Man Comics, and it's in Blue Ridge, Georgia.
Blue Ridge, Georgia,
and the name couldn't be more spot on. Like I had to drive from Helen to this location was about an hour and 15 minutes, and it's all like mountainside, like coming down a mountain, driving down a mountain, and going back. Had to drive up a lot of windy roads. And I was like, this comic shop better be worth it. But the pictures I saw were really intriguing. It's here, and I'll share this around. But they got statues, hella like comic books, but all of their cabinets are made out of wood.
Looks nice.
Very rustic.
There's like stuffed beaver, rustic vibe. There's like stuffed beavers everywhere.
Dude, those are cool.
Yeah, their mascot. Yeah, and the cabinets they had, the wooden cabinets.
I need to build this for my house.
Yeah, where like you'd push the push the like the Spider-Man box in, and it would slide out automatically.
They got like taxidermy.
Yeah.
This looks like Ron Swanson's comic shop.
This is awesome.
That's really legit. Yeah, it's legit. I highly recommend. I love the beaver mascot too, Mountain Man Comics, and it's a cool name, Mountain Man Comics. Really good shop. I highly recommend it if you're in the area. Big shout outs, like I said, to Nia. With that said, Shortbox Nation, we are back. The music you just heard was the original Champion Season song in its full glory, as produced by one half of our Shortbox music team, Mr. Alan Fresh, aka my friend Greg Barish. We brought it up on our Justice League Unlimited episode of Pilot's License, which you should all check out on our Patreon if you're a fan of really good comic book cartoons and animated shows. But we brought it up on that episode how Greg actually sampled the Justice League intro song from the cartoon for that bump. But I've only ever been able to play like the short version for the actual show and transition. So it's always nice to have an excuse to hear the full thing. So shout out to Greg Parrish. And I've got 2 emails this week to read. Yeah, they've been listening. They've been listening to our calls. So big shout outs to those who emailed us. The first one is from Andy Callahan, which he only started emailing the show this year. I think his first email was only a few episodes back, but it looks like he's starting to get comfortable with it.
Okay.
You know how it goes when it's like,
so you didn't scare him off? Yep. No? All right. Or me. I shouldn't just blame him.
well, I have this theory that the Shortbacks Nation enjoys anytime we take pot shots at them and stuff. So, but now we got an email from Andy Callahan titled "Your Last Episode," and of course, he starts it off with "Baby Bird." It sounded like
it's taken
for him, for Andy.
Is that from like Snow White or something?
No, it's actually from a Looney Tunes episode
Looney Tunes.
titled "Tweet Tweet," which might have been like the first appearance of Tweety Bird, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, Andy Callahan writes, "Baby Bird, it sounded like the what if email got y'all riled up. Actually, my scenario, that's right, because his email last week was what if Todd McFarlane left Marvel, I believe was the premise.
This was the comic book
Yeah.
guy. Okay.
So continuing, he wrote,
Obviously.
he writes, actually, my scenario includes Marvel not getting bankrupt in the 90s and selling off the rights to Spider-Man and X-Men. Marvel buys Disney, and we get Spider-Mouse
buys Disney?
and Wakanda at Epcot.
Whoa.
Center. Yeah, which is not what he wrote in the email for the record. It said Todd McFarlane leaving Marvel. I don't know how he got this, but that's
He's adding more plot points.
Yeah, that's one hell of a maybe that's the impact of Todd McFarlane staying at Marvel.
Buys out Disney.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what he's getting at. All right, Andy, I see it. But he goes on to write, also, Ed championed Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. I want you to know that the cartoon is streaming free on Tubi. And the YouTube channel Toy Galaxy did a video on the history of Cadillac and Dinosaurs. Last of all, I just happened to find my copy of the In-Cal, published for Free Comic Book Day 2017. It was a promo for the larger collected hardcover trade. Thanks for the great Mobius spotlight, Andy from Jack's Beach.
Nice.
Shout outs to Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
From Jack's Beach. Have you ever run into Andy? Ashley, I know you live in the area.
He was like one of my regulars when I worked at the Jack's Beach comic shop.
Oh,
Superhero
so you know Mr.
Beach.
Andy.
Yeah, I know Andy.
Okay.
But yeah, now we have to drive really far to go get our comics. But not going to get into
Jack's
that.
Beach problems. Jack's Beach comic.
We got to
problems.
cross the ditch.
And speaking of our last, Mobius was our last episode. I'm sorry. Speaking about our what if episode and just what if in general, the second email we got this week comes from a Charles Wilson, which I think might be his first time writing in. I'm not familiar with the name, but I'm appreciative nonetheless. His email is titled "What If." What's up, Botter and crew? Thank you so much for doing a show highlighting the What If series. My favorites are the What If, insert character, join S.H.I.E.L.D., which I think there's like plenty to choose from, right?
Yeah.
There's like Daredevil, Wolverine. I think Spider-Man had one too. But it goes on saying, basically showcasing how different characters would change how S.H.I.E.L.D. operates. I think a good comic book what if would be what if Deadpool was Sorcerer Supreme. It could be Deadpool using magic and one-liners to murk his targets.
I don't need him doing magic.
No one man should have all that power. And then he wraps up his email, or Charles wraps up his email. A good short box what if. What if Botter had more love for DC than Marvel?
Oh, weird.
That would be weird.
Yeah, I don't know what that would look like.
This room would look a little different.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, let's be fair. There's some DC
I think
stuff in there.
we originally used the Infinity Gauntlet. Would be the mother box? Would that be our logo?
Sure, 100%. No, I mean, hell, our flyer for the Comic Swap and Hip Hop event from what is that, 2019?
Yeah.
Has Darkseid meeting Thanos.
Yeah.
I would just be more into Darkseid than Thanos.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I love Darkseid as it is, but
No. That's interesting.
I don't know. As I'm staring at Daredevil and Spider-Man statues.
Avatar would cook DC comic box. Like, I got a Batman shelf. I mean, I got love for DC, but more than Marvel, that'd be an interesting.
That would be.
What if me and that Botter couldn't exist in the same space? What if it was like? What if that was a what were they calling it in Loki? Anytime there was a
Variant.
Well, they were variants, but what was the moment? Like, what were they calling like those moments in time where it was like critical mass was built?
Oh.
This is an easy Google search, but I'm going to
screaming right now.
Yeah, someone is screaming.
And it wasn't even that long ago.
You know what? I guarantee you when we start recording, I'm going to remember it in the middle of Ashley's championship. That's what's going to happen.
Back in there. What it was. No one gets mad. How could I not remember that?
Yeah, I
happened.
forgot. We cover a lot. Anyways, Charles wraps up his email with, y'all are always entertaining. Love the show. Make mine short box.
Nice.
Chuck Wilson. Yo, big shout out to Chuck Wilson.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And I got two shout outs myself that I'll go ahead and share. One is a shout out to a listener, Ryan Goodson. He is from the 66th Rescue at Nellis Air Force Base. Him and his he reached out to us on Instagram and said that him and his squadron or his crew are big fans of the show.
Oh,
they
nice.
listen to the show to get through the workday. I appreciate that. And any chance that we can, any opportunity we have to, I don't know, make someone's life at work a little easier, that means a lot to me. So big shout outs to Ryan Goodson and the whole 66 rescue squad at Nellis. And I'll go ahead and give one more shout outs to a friend of ours, very good friend of ours, Tony A. Uppy, who went ahead and left us
presents.
Yeah, some presents, man. He's got a new comic book called Haunt Tales. And if you know anything about Tony, he's a huge comic book fan to start with, but he's also a creator of comic books himself, especially zines. He was on our zine episode 2 or 3 years ago at this point. If you live in the Jax area, I believe Tony, like a Robin Hood / comic book John Appleseed, is leaving comic books all over the city and
Nice.
various like little libraries and whatnot.
That's
so
awesome.
Give Tony Appy a follow on Instagram. I think he's Stupid Sketchbook something on Instagram.
Yep.
So check it out. Big shout outs to everyone that emailed us. With that being said, it's time to go ahead and wrap up this episode with our last recurring segment of the show. It's everyone's favorite time. It's time for Champion Season.
Champion Season.
Champion Season is the part of the show where we highlight other worthwhile entertainment and recommendations that we feel deserves your attention. These can be much more than comics, but include our movie picks, TV series, books, or video games, or really anything else that we're hyped about this week. This segment is brought to you by Black Hive Tattoo, Jacksonville's premier appointment-only custom tattoo studio. If you're searching for a group of talented artists who will work with you to bring your comic culture ideas to life, then look no further. Go to blackhivetattoo.com and sign up for their newsletter to find out when they're taking new project requests. Kick us off with this segment, man. What are you going to champion today?
Gene Yang book. It is American-born Chinese. It was made in 2006. I think that was one of his first big things. So I picked this up maybe a couple of years ago or so, but it's kind of semi-autobiographical. It's all illustrated and written by him. So he's basically kind of him growing up as a kid. I think there's a great quote here, Publishers Weekly. It kind of sums up this book, but it's basically says, American-born Chinese is more than just a story of a Chinese-American childhood. It's a fable for every kid born into a body and a life they wish they could escape. It's a very
succinct.
Poignant. Yeah, very succinct. It's growing up, kind of embracing who you are, embracing your heritage, embracing your ethnicity when you're the only one in like a classroom. And he also ties in the Su Kong, the Journey to the West fable. He kind of tells that story and kind of makes parallels of that, basically the most famous Chinese fable of all time. Makes parallels of that character into the character here growing up, and it's really well done. His artwork's very simple, very clean, very fun. But it's a great book. It's like getting me right in the feels because I can kind of somewhat relate to this. But yeah, like I said, I definitely recommend it if you haven't read his comic stuff. Kind of just go back and pick this book up. And it's a nice book too.
I think he won a few awards based off of that, like an Eisner and then some other like literary awards.
Like I said, he's legit. He's a legit writer. And like I said, that's my champion for the week.
All right, Ashley, what are you going to champion today?
I actually have one that I'm like super excited about.
Oh.
So it's an app that you download on your phone called Duolingo. Duolingo.
The language app.
Yeah. So Duolingo, the way they get you is you can get a free version, but if you make a certain amount of mistakes, they kick you out of the lesson. So you have to actually
Oh man, give me your money.
So you have to actually pay for it if you want to like really learn the language. But this is the kicker. So I'm learning Spanish so that I don't feel like I wasted my money, but I really downloaded it because I'm learning High Valyrian.
High Valyrian is
like a literal language from Game of Thrones that they have that you can learn.
Oh my God.
I won't lie, that's kind of badass. And not surprising
is
at
Klingon
all.
on there?
No, I looked, but it's
Valerian.
it's amazing.
So you're learning a made-up language.
Yes, but I'm
That-
also learning Spanish
Okay.
to offset the made-up language.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
feel like I'm actually doing something with my life, but like secretly got it for the High
You can
Valerian.
curse someone out in High Valerian. You won't know.
But it's really cool, like the lessons that they do, and like I'm learning it, guys. I'm gonna
That's
rewatch
funny.
Game of Thrones, and I'm not gonna need the subtitles.
Is the Spanish the shits and giggle part, and Valerian is like the very
I
serious?
think that's
like,
what she's
lesson?
saying.
Well, let me ask, why Spanish?
I mean, I paid the money for the app, and so I want to like have like some practical use for it.
That's fair. That's because I mean,
Yeah.
I guess.
You can go to the little
guess-
food store.
Yeah. I guess having fluent in High Valerian probably won't open a lot of job doors.
Really
but-
sets a resume on fire.
But that's interesting. That's pretty cool. You know, that's cool that you are having something practical. You're doing something, learning something practical,
man.
but also having a damn good time. Like, learning
Yeah.
what are some other? I guess would you be offended if I said made up languages
No.
or fictional?
Like
How about
Tolkien?
fictional,
Like
fictional languages?
So I
guess, is
looked
it really
through
fictional,
it.
though?
Like High Valerian is the only one that I found on there because I was looking for like Klingon or like Elvish and stuff like that. But it's High Valerian is the only one that they have lessons for right now. So they're probably going to be adding stuff
they're
like
working
that in
on
the
Klingon.
future. But yeah, this is the only one that they've got like all the exercises like ready to go for.
Wow.
Damn, good stuff. You are over here, encouraging our listeners to get a little more cultured and educated. And I can get behind that.
High Valerian.
You got anything else, Ashley?
No, that's been taking up all my time.
Doesn't it remind you too, like, hey, you haven't, done your lessons? Isn't it the app that's like that's constantly reminding you, like, hey, 15 minutes on social media is nowhere near as important as 15 minutes learning this language, right? Something like that.
Yeah, you can turn those off.
You're like,
trip
shut up,
alerts. Yeah.
stupid.
I already given you
app.
you my money.
Yeah.
I don't need your.
Me no hable learning.
So did you get kicked out, or did you just go ahead and paid?
No. High Valerian's kind of a hard language to learn.
I can only imagine.
And so I think the second lesson I got kicked out of it and I was like really into it. So I was like,
harsh.
dang it, I'm just going to go ahead and pay this.
All right, actually, first of all, I can't believe I didn't ask you to do this sooner. I got to hear a phrase. What is a go-to like phrase that you know by heart by now?
Okay, so Hontes Vieres, the birds are singing.
Oh, that's nice.
Or let's see, Nuha Munya Karini Isi, my mother is happy.
Have you used any of these in a casual conversation or in a normal conversation?
Not for my mom.
Not yet. I just finished the
perfect
6 lessons of the intro. So once I build that confidence, I'm going to be throwing it out
Do
there
make mine short
all the
box, so you can learn
time.
that.
Oh my God, you definitely got to.
Oh.
And Valerian.
Ashley,
Yeah.
come on. All right, that's your homework assignment for. But my next episode, I need make mine short box and High Valerian. That'd be a
Okay.
great sign off.
I can do that.
Really good champion. We ever hear like more excited about the High Valerian over the Spanish? Like, yeah. Say Spanish. Or
it's
something.
practical.
We got to say something. We're like, we got to say something. We don't.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff. All right, I got 2 champions to do this week. I'm gonna go ahead and start off with Spider-Man: No Way Home trailer. Have y'all?
Oh my God.
Have y'all seen that?
No, I didn't even know it was
whoa.
out.
Oh,
That
that's
was
like
like
well, actually, you don't
Yeah.
watch a lot of trailers.
I don't like
Twitter went
trailers.
nuts.
That's fair. Twitter went fucking insane for this trailer, and I mean, granted, I did too. I did not know. I didn't realize the trailer dropped until and I think didn't it drop like during the NFL game
I think so.
or something like that. It was Blythe that had to remind me. She was like, "Hey, the trailer dropped." I was like, "No, no, that was the leaked trailer.
Yeah.
I'm not watching that 240p.
Yeah.
Not if that. I avoided the leaked trailer. I mean, I could have easily had watched it. I watched maybe 2 seconds of it, and I was like, "No, this ain't worth it. This is not worth it. I'll just wait." Boy, was I glad to wait because that trailer was awesome. Like I felt like I was watching just something vastly different, man. Like, and that's what I meant by watching, the Shang-Chi trailer, which to me I could just kind of tell, like, all right, this would be kind of like your formulaic introduction to the hero. Now, granted, it's got to be that way because we're introducing a brand new character. I don't have no grudges to it. But for the Spider-Man trailer, I knew it had to be big because, they've just been holding on to it for so long. I think they wanted to drop it. They were hinting at dropping it earlier in the year, But then Kevin Feige, I think I've seen something where he was like, no, we're not going to drop it at all. We're just going to wait for the movie to come out. Yeah. So there's a lot of like confusion. A lot of people were very anxiously waiting for this trailer to drop. And it was worth it. I mean, Ed, you've seen it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The brand new day, or One More Day. Like the different things they're trying to do with Spider-Man. That threw me off big time. Like I had a feeling.
Is this coming out before the Doctor Strange movie?
Yeah, this comes out December 15th, if I'm not mistaken.
God, they're really making up for lost time.
Yeah, it's like
because Eternals is still coming out, right?
To be honest, I kind of forgot Eternals are coming out. Like,
yeah,
it's just like if I had to pick which one I'm more excited for, Spider-Man. It's easily Spider-Man all day because of the fact of what they're kind of hinting at. If they end up doing One More Day. Or, now people are like, well, Doctor Strange was a little out of character in that trailer. Is he a Skrull?
I did see that. I was like, what was the deal? Yeah, I've seen
I love some of these, like,
what's
fan
the deal
theories.
with Doctor Strange?
Yeah, I'm not even going to, pretend to say, like, I...
Did you see the Dr. Octopus, the Aunt May, like, kidnapping Aunt May in 2000? And then and it's like Marissa Tomei, he's got his glasses down.
This trailer feels like a great amalgam between... if you were a fan of the comic books and you had read One More Day and you remember how kind of like, polarizing that story arc was and is up to a certain point.
That's bold.
I definitely guarantee the attitude on One More Day is going to change after this movie. I feel like people are retroactively going to say it was such a, great comic book series. But I remember when it came out and people fucking being furious with it. So for Marvel to try to do... Yeah, I mean, granted, I'm only going by a 2-3 minute trailer, so it could be a complete,
misdirect.
Yeah, misdirect. Yeah. But the fact that even the trailer, tips its hat towards that, or has some of those references, it's like, damn, they really are paying attention, and they are going into like some deep dives, like I mean, which isn't surprising because. That I feel like that team is filled with like people who appreciate the comic books and source material. But this trailer felt like I was watching a fucking movie itself. It was like the One More Day Doctor Strange stuff, and then they fucking hit you over the head with the Sinister Six kind of vibes they got going on. Like what Marvel's getting into with like this multiverse stuff is going to be wild, man. Yeah. I was really curious how they were going to like make me care or raise the stakes after everything they've done in the last 10 years. They found it with like this whole multiverse stuff. I'm very curious about it. The laugh, the Green Goblin laugh.
Yeah, oh my God.
Now, Grant, I'm over here like commending Ashley for avoiding the trailer, and I'm essentially giving her the trailer.
Dude, if Willem Dafoe comes back as the Green Goblin.
Actually, I would almost say
oh my God.
It would be... It would respect your time. The trailer would respect your time and get you hype, and maybe that's all you need to watch.
You don't really know what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah. I have no idea what they're going to do. A part of me is a little worried that it might be too much.
Yeah.
But it's fucking Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And if they bring back any of the characters I'm thinking they're going to do, I'm here for it, man. So, Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, it might be worth your time watching, Ashley. I'm just telling you.
All right.
And the last thing I'll champion is a Netflix documentary series. I think I'm going to continue trying to champion one sports-related thing every episode.
Oh, no.
Just to go ahead and carry you through with this running joke.
The Sports Box.
But there's a documentary on Netflix about titled Untold, Malice at the Palace.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Who doesn't? And I was really watching NBA at that time, so I remember this incident. But it's a documentary on Netflix featuring key individuals and NBA players who were part of the infamous 2004 incident between the players from Indiana Pacers, Detroit Pistons, and the fucking fans themselves who were attending the game in Michigan's the Palace Stadium. So you've got like Ron Artest, Steven Jackson, Jermaine O'Neal, Reggie Miller, Ben Wallace, a whole bunch of people giving like their side of the story and what happened in that infamous brawl and the fallout too. That was always one part of the story I was terrible at, was keeping up with what actually ended up happening. I remember, they suspended a bunch of players and stuff, but to hear how that incident and the misunderstanding, because they never released the full video. The full video had never really kind of circulated. So the players got the brunt of the blame, which makes sense. I mean, the NBA is not going to blame the fans, the people paying tickets.
Exactly. And they're the ones making all the money. And
exactly.
They're not the sympathetic.
So it's easier
people.
For them to just,
exactly.
let's just ding the players. But to watch this series, if you're a fan of the Last Dance that aired in 2020,
So this is on Netflix?
Yeah.
I thought it was an ESPN. It's not ESPN thing?
You know, I don't know if they're probably involved in some way.
Okay.
But I don't remember any ESPN branding or anything like that. But they end up giving you the whole story in an hour. It's enjoyable, albeit a little sad. It ends on a bummer because you're like, damn, these guys never really kind of got away from that reputation and what happened. So, Untold, Malice at the Palace. It's on Netflix, and that's the last of my champion, which brings us to the end of this segment. But before we close it out, I want to go ahead and share a champion pick from the sponsor of this segment, the head honcho of Black Hive Tattoo himself. Mr. Nick Wagner is going to chime in with his champion pick.
Hey guys, Nick Wagner from Black Hive Tattoo here. My champion pick this week. Sorry to do it to you guys again, but it's an Apple Plus series, and it's called For All Mankind. It's another one that slipped by me. My wife turned me on to it, and it's got 2 seasons. Basically, it's what if the Russians had gotten to the moon first. And the writing is exceptional, and I know it's not strictly comics, but it's got that science feel. It's got that storytelling that I think we are all into. It just caught me off guard over and over and over with how smart some of the stuff they did is, and the end of the 2nd season is just mind-blowing. Well, that's it for this week. Take care.
All right. Appreciate it, Nick. Thank you. Has anyone watched that series on Apple yet?
No, but I actually have Apple TV now.
I think actually, I'm right there with you. I got the free trial. I think I bought when you buy a new iPhone, you get a free year of Apple TV. So
I wish they'd do that for me.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, Nick. And that actually brings us to the end of the show. So there you have it, Shortbox Nation. Thanks for hanging out with us this week. Let's keep the conversation going. Feel free to reach out to us and let us know what your thoughts on Shang-Chi are, whether that be about a particular comic book or about the movie. If you end up seeing it later in the week, let us know what you think. Hit us up on social media or write us a short email of your thoughts and send it to our inbox at theshortboxjacks@gmail.com. And while you're at it, triple check that you subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app, because next week I'll be interviewing comic writer Jeremy Holt. But if that's too long for you to wait, consider joining our Patreon community for access to bonus content like our spin-off podcast series, Pilot's License, which is a bonus series where we revisit our favorite comic book cartoons and animated shows. We just dropped our episode on the Justice League Unlimited series. That's available for you right now. We've got an episode about Batman Beyond coming later in September. So get access to everything we have to offer our supporters by clicking the Patreon link in our show notes. In the meantime, Shortbox Nation, look, stay tuned to our Instagram and Twitter and take care of yourselves. Come back next week and please continue to make mine and yours Shortbox. Peace.